I've had many strange encounters with things I can't explain. I hardly talk about them, since like many that believe in this stuff, I don't want to be labeled negatively. I did post one of my scariest experiences on the paranormal subreddit once a couple years ago or so. The typical disclaimer, I tend to rationalize and am skeptical of paranormal events. Usually there is a perfectly normal explanation for things. Oh, thanks, Christian. Did you get in this note, man? Did you get in this note somehow? No. However, I've experienced enough of the unknown by myself and with others present that I feel I just can't brush it aside.
Trouble spot number one is, we just talked about it. Yes, he should have brushed this aside.
Interesting. Thanks for weighing in so soon. Before the story even gets started, you're already
we just talked about this before we started. You don't acknowledge supernatural things.
Yes, of course.
You give it power.
Yeah. I was 7 years old. My mom was in the backyard. It was the weekend, early afternoon, and I'd been up for a few hours. I'm in the living room sitting on the floor with some toys when I hear my dad calling for me from upstairs. Twildy, come up here. Like she's a puppy or some shit. That's how I said it. The dad probably was like, hey, Twildy, come up here. But that's irrelevant and has nothing to do with the story. So without a second thought, I run upstairs to see what he wants. To me, it sounded like his voice was coming from the bathroom. Weird. Which was just a few feet from the top of the stairs. I see the door open and no one is in there. I call for him, no response. I check mine and my brother's bedroom, we shared one, and my parents' bedroom. No one is in either of them. Thinking that odd, I go back downstairs to find my mom, who is now in the kitchen. I ask her, where's Dad? She tells me he's at work and he won't be home until much later in the evening. This is the only time I've ever had an experience with something that's mimicked the voice of someone I know, clear as day. Years later, when I was 21, my mom had an experience with a mimic in a different home, thinking she was having a conversation with my stepdad while she was in the shower. I was downstairs on the other side of the house with my stepdad the whole time, and neither of us were talking. We were watching a movie. Has anyone else had experiences with a mimic? I'd be curious to hear the stories. I don't know.
That'd be freaky if it happened.
Oh, you think this one's made up? You think Twildy didn't?
No, I mean, maybe some of the voices we hear in our heads are just the voices in our heads.
Yeah, I actually made one possibility that you would actually probably appreciate in the what could this possibly be. That's weird, dude. I'm sorry. That's a weird one. That's weird.
That is pretty crazy, especially the second part where she's talking in the shower.
Yeah, and the stepdad's nowhere around.
Right.
These are the things, like, I don't know, why would they ever include that in the storybook? Like, I want to know what she was talking about to the stepdad, because that's like a key piece of that information is what was that conversation being had.
That kind of stuff is usually really boring.
Well, that's the thing. If it was really boring, then you're like, well, what's the point of that? You know, what's the point of that even happening?
Maybe there's no point. Maybe it's just a slippage in time. And
see, that's kind of, what I was... Actually, we can get into that right now. Well, I made a short list of what I believe could be the culprit for mimics.
Okay.
In the majority of the stories we heard. And one of them is portals and vortices. And this is something I was jotting it down because I couldn't really find someone saying, maybe it's this, but it's just my own personal...
Scott's theory.
Yeah, Scott's... Well, not even my theory, but I put it in here because I was like, it could be. But one angle that isn't often brought into the conversation of mimics is the potential for these experiences to be atmospheric in nature. Is it possible the locations where these things are reported as happening just happen to be due to something energetic on the land itself? We hear stories of time slips, missing time travel, anything and everything related to time itself, being a flat circle, the whole nine. But what is the likelihood of someone just hearing voices from the past or future and being rightfully spooked in the process? The only thing that steers me away from this particular theory is that a lot of the experiencers in these stories report a general sense of unease, not just confused or caught off guard, which I feel like would be the normal reaction, but these people legitimately report feeling something sinister or foreboding, which brings us right into a classic, demons. But we'll get to that after another story.
After the break.
I remember there was this one, I can't remember who the video was by, but they were talking about the most haunted house in America or something like that. And that it might not even be super haunted, but it's just got tons of portals. Like, it just happens to be on land that has a lot of these weird, vortexes or portals on it.
How do you prove it? I don't think
you do. I don't think you do.
So it's not
unless you witness it like firsthand, like kind of like what we talked about in a archived video at this point, but the stairs to nowhere.
Oh yeah.
Like I would imagine, like we see enough sci-fi movies that I would imagine something like that you just witness a portal opening up and you're like, oh, I guess our house is on portal land.
Yeah.
You know, which could be a thing.
It could be.
Who am I, you know?
I have not experienced this thing yet.
Yeah, he doesn't know what portal land is yet. We'll get to him at some point.
It's Oregon.
Portal land.
Same thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, but I just thought, I was like, okay, you know, sure, there's a lot of creepy things that this could be, but what if it is just something like a time slip or some kind of portal vortex that you're hearing a voice from the past or from the future?
The dimension right next to us slides over just a tiny bit and you can hear the echoes or see the echoes there.
It could be just, it could literally be anything. Like in that instance, she heard her dad upstairs and I was like, oh, I'm going to go check, and oh, he's not here.
Or it could be a monster.
Could be demons. You're right. Absolutely right. Again, we'll kind of probably touch on this further a little later, but it always seems like it's calling people to come to them. Like, what are you trying to get me to go do? And actually, now that I think about it, I think Belief Hole did an episode on disembodied voices, and we're talking about a book, and the first story from this author, as a kid playing basketball or whatever, and hearing what he thought was his dad's voice, but sounding kind of robotic in the woods, saying like, hey, come out, I found something, come here, come check it out. And just feeling really creeped out and shit. And then like running back in the house and seeing his dad, pretty much. Like, you know, like what are these things calling us to go do?
What if it's like Mother Nature trying to pick us off?
Like one by one?
Well, just as a way of depopulating the world, Mother Nature pulls some things. So, and this could explain
That'd be terrifying.
The missing 411 stuff where all of a sudden person's drawn into a forest and just disappears because a forest is dangerous, especially when you're kind of drawn in like in a trance-like way or whatever way some of these people go in and disappear.
Yeah, we've all seen Lord of the Rings, man. It gets creepy.
Yeah. You know, it's like, that's sometimes I wonder if Mother Nature has the power to do things like that. You know, all of a sudden a tsunami comes and wipes out a bunch of people. It doesn't feel random, but it kind of is random.
Yeah, but at that point, if it was Mother Nature, I feel like we would just have to submit to the fact that we're in like an M. Night Shyamalan movie and be like, oh, I guess that's it then. He got us.
Aren't we all always though? I mean, if that's what we're talking about mostly is that kind of world.
This podcast lives in an M. Night Shyamalan movie. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's not, look, I don't know. There's a lot of, I think when they did that episode, I think they were talking about Pan, and they're talking about the kind of like, which is like an earth spirit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be the same thing, like similar to what you're saying, but instead of just Mother Nature in general, it's like some kind of like earth god or earth goddess or some shit, whatever it is. But yeah, terrifying all the same, you know. But in an instance like this, what would happen if, well, no, because nothing did happen. The author of the story got called upstairs, went upstairs, and it's not like something snatched her, unless the end game was just to terrify her or freak her out or something like that, you know?
Or replace her.
There you go. Now we're on to something.
Yeah, she comes up there, has given permission by coming up there and hearing the voice. So all of a sudden, the spirit just switches.
Classic stuff.
Now the good kid will eventually be under the power of something else forever and ever.
Amen. Yeah, would you like to lead us into the second story?
What is the second story?
It's labeled story number 2.
Okay. 1077.
It's not the title, but that's who it's by.
That's who it's by. I figured you would. I just read the stuff out and let you narrate.
Oh, thank you. And Christian,
you're like the David Attenborough of my life.
Yeah.
Years ago, just after my 16th birthday and days after receiving my operator's driver license, I hurried home after school to change into my uniform and grab a snack before heading to work. I went to my bedroom and changed, then walked into the kitchen to make a sandwich when I heard my mom call my name from the other room. I immediately answered as I would any other time. In the kitchen, Mom. Waiting on her to pop around the corner any second, it hit me how early it was for her to be home from work. I said, wow, you're home early. Everything okay? I was answered again from the other room. Just an hour or so. At this point in my life, it was only my mom and I living together, as she and Dad were separated, so no chance of anyone else being inside. After making my food, I sat at the bar in our kitchen where I could see our driveway and noticed only my truck and not her car. With instant spine-chilling chills, I hurried around the house to look for her, and I was alone. I ran out of the house, left my food, and raced to work. To this day, I do not know who or what this was, but definitely do not believe it was sleep paralysis, as I had been awake all day.
Weird. you.